While I'm hesitant to call this the most powerful PvP specialization, just because there are some really good players out there, even better than me, and when Season of Discovery launches, they may come up with some really insane busted build I never even thought of. But what I want there to be at least is a baseline out there so we can all work on and think about, because I want Season of Discovery to actually be Season of Warlocks. Not because Blizzard did anything, but because all of us Warlock players have a leg up on the competition at launch from studying and theory crafting all the changes proposed. However, this is the build I'm going to go with after some long hard thought about what tools we have for PvP at level 25 as a Warlock. This is the base build, but with all builds there are some variations that may be worth consideration if you don't like some of our talent choices. Starting off, we take 3 out of 5 suppression to maximize our Affliction spell hit chance to the 5% PvP hit cap for things like our Shadow Dots, Drain Life, Fear, and Drain Soul. From there, take 5 out of 5 improved Corruption to get Corruption reduced to an instant cast, 2 out of 2 improved Life Tap for the extra 20% mana, 3 out of 3 improved Curse of Agony for more dot damage, and rounding out the Affliction tree, taking Amplify Curse to have a 3-minute burst damage ability to one of our Curse of Agony casts. Hopping over to Demonology, we round out the build with either 2 out of 2 improved Hellstone or 2 out of 5 Demonic Embrace. For runes, we take Master Channeler for the chest for their Drain Life dot, Metamorphosis for gloves for instant cast Searing Pain, massive armor increase, and 100% more mana from Life Tap, which combos with the extra 20% from improved Life Tap. And finally, Demonic Embrace for legs, since one of our main ways to die is to get immobilized, slowed, or stunned so people can burst us down. And having an instant cast 6 second plus 30% dodge buff should help us better weather those storms, or you can use it for the extra 30% crit chance on Searing Pain as a finisher to execute people if needed. Of the runes, I'd recommend only the leg rune be switched out, as the other two will increase your survivability in PvP much more than anything else those slots will offer. For pet choices, it's hard to recommend anything except Voidwalker, specifically for that sweet sacrifice shield. Imp can be very annoying extra damage and provide blood pack, but since the idea behind the build is to maximize your instant cast choices, so you're literally never standing still, unless the imp just doesn't attack, there will be edge cases as you kite where you step out of the 30-yard blood packed aura. Succubus is a close second to Voidwalker for the extra damage, but because we'll be casting our Shadow Dots on anything that moves, since they're all instant cast, unless you want to micromanage targets for Seduce, it'd be easier just to stick with the Voidwalker for the shield to survive burst attacks. First things first, these are the most important things you can do for your survivability, not just for this specific build, but for all 25 Warlock PvP or even level 60 Warlock PvP. You'll want to get the run speed enchant on your boots. You'll want to get a plethora of potions, whether you make them or buy them, like health potions, mana potions, swiftness potions, free action potions, lesser invisibility potions, and elixirs of poison resistance. And if you're still loaded with cash after getting a nice stock of all of those couples of potions, get various elemental protection potions like Shadow or Fire. Lastly, make sure First Aid is leveled up as high as possible before you even step foot into a Battleground or Ashen Vale. If you scoff at a lot of these, at minimum make sure you have health, free action, and swiftness pots, run speed enchant for your boots, and as a higher rank of First Aid bandages you can craft. Because every serious Sweatlord PvPer will have most, if not all of these, and if you don't, you're going to be in for a bad time. Now, the entire idea behind this build is unless you're hardcasting a Shadow Bolt, Immolate, Fear, or Drain Soul, you literally never have to stop moving. Your main damage dealing abilities, Corruption, Curse of Agony, Drain Life, Life Tap, and Searing Pain are all instant cast abilities, and Life Tap will ensure you're almost never out of mana for as little life sacrifice as possible. So I'm sure you're wondering, well, when should I cast Shadow Bolt then? Well, honestly, hopefully hardly ever. Since in theory it'll be an extremely beefy tanky tune between improved Hellstone or Demonic Embrace, Soulstone, Voidwalker Sacrifice, Drain Life Dot with extra life gain from the rune, Potions, Demonic Embrace, and Metamorphosis defensive boosts, plus having a plethora of offensive and defensive instant casts, you should be constantly annoying your opponents in the mid lanes, switching between all the targets, loading up all the dots as you can, fearing healers when possible, and running around kiting anyone targeting you. Then as the fight progresses, you want to be using Searing Pain to pinpoint juicy, low HP targets to execute them. In PvP, there's no such thing as a hard rotation like PvE has, but generally you do follow a similar cast order unless you have to react to what your opponent is doing. Again, in general, you'll want to start off casting an Immolate if you can against casters as they move into your range, or Demonic Charge them before they get a cast off if combat hasn't started. But if you can't get the cast or charge off, don't worry about it, it's not that important. Against melee, it's an entirely different story. If they don't stealth up on you, you can attempt a demonic charge if combat hasn't started for a quick early stun into Shadow Cleave or Searing Pain for some quick burst damage, then run away applying your dots while trying to get and maintain as much room as possible between you and the melee user. If they do stealth and stun you, you'll just have to eat it while trying to use your defensive cooldowns like Hellstones, Potions, Voidwalker Sack, or Demonic Embrace until the stun diminishing return kicks in. Then the same strategy applies whether it's melee or casters. Try to gain distance applying dots and using Searing Pains in between dot applications to wear down your opponent's HP. In group situations, as we mentioned in the theory section, you want to mass cast starting your dots, fear on mostly on healers or whoever is looking like they're doing the most damage, and immolate or shadow bolts as long as you're not being targeted. But when you do start getting targeted, switch to kiting, defensive cooldowns, dots, and instant cast Searing Pain. Lastly, we'll take a quick look at the race choices. For Horde, it doesn't really matter. Choose Undead if you prefer Will of the Forsaken for some built-in fear protection against things like other Warlocks, Priests, and Warriors. Choose Orcs if you hate Rogues or Stun specifically, and want the 25% chance to resist Stun racial. For Alliance though, Gnomes are the de facto undisputable go-to race for this build. Like mentioned in the earlier section, one way you can die very quickly is being stunned, slowed, or immobilized. Guess which Alliance racial protects you against 2/3 of these on a 1-minute cooldown? That's right, Gnomes via Escape Artist. Because of Escape Artist, Gnomes will be as close to impossible to lock down with slows or immobilize, which really makes this build shine. In fact, we think Gnomes may be literally the best race option for this build regardless of faction, simply because Escape Artist fills the weaknesses of this build so well. With all that said, this is why we think this build will be an incredibly fierce build for PvP. You've got so many offensive and defensive options available to you, plus maximum PvP spell hit without equipping a single spell hit item. Let us know what you think of it down in the comments, and as always, if you like the video, hit that like and sub button. Have a good night, and let's melt some faces, Warlocks.